write the lyrics to change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. It's the verse effect. It's just the verse effect. It's the verse effect. It's the verse effect. It's the verse effect. I write the lyrics to change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same.
Welcome back to the Verse Effect, where lyrics meet legacy. I'm Roderick.
And I'm Camille. Today we're breaking down one of hip-hop's most timeless anthems, C.R.E.A.M by the Wu-Tang Clan.
It's a track that took 5 simple words, cash rules everything around me, and turned them into a mirror for the realities of survival, struggle, and ambition.
We'll explore how Raekwon and Inspector Deck translated life in Shaolin into lyrical truth, and why those words still echo through generations.
Quick note before we get started. This episode contains explicit lyrics and references to drug use and violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Let's press play and step inside the world of C.R.E.A.M, where pain meets poetry and every dollar tells a story.
I gotta say, this first line from Raekwon, it just grabs you. I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no jive. That's storytelling right there. Camille, when you first heard that opening, didn't it feel like he just hit the lights and you're standing in Staten Island, like right in the middle of all of it?
Definitely, Roderick. There's a kind of cinematic quality in it, isn't there? Raekwon's words, especially crime side and New York Times side, they do more than set a scene. They comment on perception. The crime side is plain enough, that street-level reality. Drugs, violence, the kind of systemic neglect mapped across so many outer boroughs in the 80s. But New York Times side, that gets philosophical for me. It's like, whose story actually gets told? And are those stories in mainstream media ever the full picture?
Yeah, and the no jive part, it's jazzy almost, but also deadly honest. You know, growing up in Oakland, those were stories I saw too, not just heard. That sense of having to fight, always being on guard. Raekwon hits you with that authenticity immediately. It's survival. You said cinematic, but to me, it's more like journalism. Realness, not glamour. And this approach was so different from, like, the glossier stuff that was going on in hip-hop during the early 90s, right?
Completely. Wu-Tang's realism, raw, so unvarnished, it was a deliberate break. I think that's part of why it had such resonance, especially alongside albums like Nas's Illmatic, which came a bit later, but shared that commitment to truth, not just spectacle. It's street poetry, but it's also a counter-narrative to flashy storytelling. In a way, Raekwon's verse invites listeners to see what's usually hidden, even whitewashed, in mainstream outlets like The Times. That authenticity set the tone for everything that followed in C.R.E.A.M.
And honestly, that's a blueprint, right? That inspired a whole generation of MCs to speak their actual truths, no filter. Sets the tone, makes the stakes plain from jump. There's no coming back from it, and that's why that opening is iconic. So, that brings us right into the next line. Only way I begin to G off was drug loot. I gotta be honest, when I first heard this as a teenager, I didn't know what G off meant. I just knew it was about getting ahead. Camille, break this down for us. What's Raekwon saying here, and why is it so heavy?
Well, G-off, that's street slang for making money, finding status, right? The drug loot is pretty explicit. It's hustling. But what's important is, Raekwon isn't romanticizing this at all. He's naming it as the only option he could see. The structure failed him, failed so many young black men. That clarity is, I don't know, almost painful. He's not saying, I wanted this lifestyle. He's saying, I had no other door to walk through.
Right. It's necessity, not aspiration. And he could have flexed, made it sound exciting or glamorous, but he doesn't. And this honestly goes back to The Message by Melly Mel. That same, weary sense of resignation, not celebration. Jay-Z tapped into it too on Reasonable Doubt, but Wu-Tang adds that, what did you call it earlier, grim poetry, that layer of pain, where money isn't just money. It's like survival, but also a kind of trap.
Exactly. There's almost a philosophical weight to this. If your only way in, the only chance at adulthood or respect, is hustling, what does that mean for a person's identity? And, that's a question that echoes across generations of hip-hop. But Wu-Tang was uniquely direct about the psychological toll. There's guilt, there's danger, there's also the loss of innocence. They make you feel each consequence, not just the cash.
That's why I always come back to this track when thinking about the divide between storytelling and reality in rap. Wu-Tang wasn't here to sell a fantasy. They were documenting a reality most people didn't want to see or hear about. It stings, because it's real. Now shifting over to Dec's verse, a man with a dream with plans to make cream, which failed, I went to jail at the age of 15. To me, this is where the track stops being just a street diary and becomes almost existential. What's your take, Camille?
That's a great way to put it. Dec's lines are so full of regret, but it's not just personal regret, it's systemic. The dream is universal. Everyone wants to make it, whatever that means. But the pivot, which failed, is abrupt. It says the system was designed for him to fail. There's no sugarcoating. And jail at 15, that kind of experience is so tragically common, and it's not just about a singular mistake. It's about a cycle, a trap. The so-called American dream isn't accessible if the road isn't paved for you.
Right, exactly. This isn't a story of individual failure, it's a story about failed systems. And hip-hop in the early 90s started turning inward like this. Artists looking at why they made certain choices, not just reciting what happened. It's almost like social analysis over a beat. And for Dec, this wasn't just storytelling. It was asking, why did this happen to me? And how many others is this happening to right now?
Yeah, and the honesty in that pivot, that his plans didn't work out, that's rare. He's not trying to be a hero or a villain, just honest. And I think that vulnerability is what made this song such a turning point in rap. It's not escapism, it's a kind of collective reckoning.
That's the power. It kind of makes you want to pause the song and sit with that line, you know?
Let's stay on Dec for a second because the next couplet, life as a shorty shouldn't be so rough. But as the world turns, I learned life is hell. It's a gut punch. Childhood, at least in theory, is supposed to be protected. Here, it's anything but. He's reflecting on lost innocence, the systemic forces that took childhood away and replaced it with daily survival.
Right, and he doesn't get flowery or sentimental about it. So rough and life is hell are simple phrases, but together, they hit so hard. It's that compression in language, a hallmark of classic hip-hop, like what Tupac did later with lines like, so many tears. Dec is saying like, this wasn't how it should be, but it was, and it hurt. That pain is almost existential.
Absolutely. There's an existential despair, but he balances it with restraint. It's like he's laying bare the trauma without dramatizing it. Wu-Tang and Dec in particular step into the role of street philosophers here, witnesses, not just participants. As a listener, you're brought to a place where you have to reckon with that trauma instead of just observing it. It's one of the reasons Wu-Tang's writing feels timeless, honestly.
Yeah, and I think about how those lines echo through later generations. Kendrick, definitely. It's a legacy, using autobiographical pain to make sense of structural violence, not just your own pain, but pain as part of a larger tapestry. So, all that weight leads us to this. Leave it up to me while I be living proof, to kick the truth to the young black youth. For a lot of folks, this is the core of C.R.E.A.M. It's not just about survival, it's about making your survival mean something. Camille, what's your read?
This line for me is part mission statement, part cautionary tale. Living proof is huge. He's not positioning himself as a preacher, but as someone who actually survived, who can tell you, from direct experience, how real and how dangerous it all is. And kick the truth, that verb choice matters. It's not teach or preach, it's sharing straight, unsanitized testimony. Young black youth needed this kind of knowledge, even if it's hard to hear.
It's wild. This might be one of the most quoted lines in hip-hop history because of that. And it's different from just offering advice. He's transforming personal pain into purpose, putting his scars out there so the next kid doesn't have to learn the hard way. And I think that's what elevates C.R.E.A.M. It's not just a street anthem, it's a communal message. It's social responsibility, woven into artistry.
Definitely. That's why this song keeps showing up on all those most important hip-hop lists. It's not just clever, it's vital. Wu-Tang turned lived experience into a tool for collective learning. That's deeply powerful and for so many, life-changing. They really set the path for conscious rap and poetic realism. So, looking at the wider picture, C.R.E.A.M didn't just shift the language or themes in hip-hop. It became kind of an anthem for economic struggle itself. I sometimes wonder if the Wu-Tang Clan realized cash rules everything around me would become this, like, pop culture shorthand for critiques of capitalism and social inequality. That hook, it pops up everywhere. Songs, movies, t-shirts, even in business boardrooms.
It's wild, right? That phrase C.R.E.A.M it's global now. I still hear people quoting it in context you would never imagine. People who maybe never even heard the full song. And yet, it's a reminder. That critique of the way the money system works, that urgency. They laid it out in '93, and it still lands today. Sometimes it feels even more relevant now, with the way things are going.
Yeah, and musically, artistically, it was transformational too. You see the fingerprints of C.R.E.A.M all over Nas's Illmatic, Kendrick's Good Kid, and plenty more. Wu-Tang proved you could be vulnerable and raw, but still hold on to street credibility. That tension is baked into the DNA of so much modern hip-hop.
And let's not forget, C.R.E.A.M started a movement, not just in sound, but in mindset. Its social critique hasn't aged a day. Systemic issues, poverty, redlining, economic gaps, those things didn't disappear in 3 decades. So this song still matters, maybe even more today.
C.R.E.A.M isn't just a story about money, it's about meaning. About how survival can become philosophy when the system gives you no options.
Exactly. Wu-Tang didn't just describe the struggle. They redefined how hip-hop could teach through truth.
And that's why decades later, Cash Rules Everything Around Me still hits. Not just as a hook, but as a hard truth.
If this episode made you think, share it with someone who still feels that Wu-Tang energy, and make sure to follow the verse effect wherever you listen.
You can also drop a comment or lyric that hit you hardest. We'd love to feature your take in a future episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, every verse has a story, and every story leaves an effect.
It's the verse effect, it's the verse effect. I write the lyrics that change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. I write the lyrics that change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. Nothing's ever gonna be the same.